Oh my goodness, there is a damning report which shows how Raiders players really feel about their head coach, Mr. Genius Josh McDaniels. The NFL Players Association surveyed players from every single team. And what we learned from this report about the Raiders validates some rumors that we heard mid-season. And this is a huge problem for the Raiders because this report and what we learned can directly impact the Raiders' ability to attract free agents. We're going to break down this whole report card, the positive and negatives, and how this could impact the future season. And make sure you subscribe to WiFiWillie for more Raiders content. I'm trying to give $100 out once I reach 50,000 subs. Let me know you're subscribed and message me on Instagram and Twitter. So on the surface level, this report card looks great. Ranked 3rd out of 32 teams, but where do the Raiders rank last? Which category do they rank last? Because when it comes to the facilities, the actual buildings, obviously they have a world-class facility in Las Vegas, brand new stadium, Allegiant Stadium, but where do they rank last? Their lowest category was the coaching staff. That is where the Raiders have ranked last out of all 32 teams. Keep in mind, what's going on is players from every single team are responding to surveys from the NFLPA. They are filling out the surveys, letting them know how they feel, and it's anonymous. They know that their employer won't tell on them or find out or anything like that. They're turning it into the NFLPA anonymously. So with these surveys, the Raiders rank their coaching staff last out of all these other teams in the NFL. Player respondents felt that head coach Josh McDaniels is less likely to listen to his players. He does not listen to his players. That is a red flag right there. We already know about his attitude. We've heard rumors about that before. His time in Denver, has he changed? Has he been more favorable to players, more kinder to players? Well, apparently this past season, players felt like he didn't listen to them. They felt like Genius Josh didn't want their input. And also, what's really crazy, and we know this about him, Patriots way, we're tough. We do 2-a-day practices, and here we go. He keeps them for longer hours than other head coaches around the league. This is what Josh McDaniels did last season. Had his players practice, but it didn't lead to results. It did not lead to wins very clearly. And the NFLPA makes this known that longer hours are not correlated to winning. And this was one thing that we heard about around the Jags game. We know the Raiders were practicing a lot. You had the Athletic report about the fact that the Raiders were really motivated prior to that Jaguars game, but they ended up losing. They ended up losing that game and then losing against Jeff Saturday and the Colts. And it was a report by Vic Tafur of the Athletic that players seemed frustrated that the longer hours weren't leading to success, weren't leading to wins, and they were confused, not knowing what the hell is going on. What else can they do to possibly win? And clearly, the players who played in this past season in 2022 felt like the coaching staff was the problem. That's why they're ranked last there. And that is absolutely insane. Now, you do hear people in the media like Davante Adams and Max Crosby speak positively about Josh McDaniels and positively about the fact that they do 2-a-day practices. You heard Max Crosby mention that, you got to be tough. It's real easy for Max Crosby to say, you got to be tough with these 2-a-day practices when he's getting paid, almost $25 million a year. But for all these players who are young guys, maybe veterans on a prove-it deal, who are just making roughly $900,000, just a 1-year contract, no guarantees, it's going to be harder for them to justify going that hard at practice, risking injury and all these things when they don't have as many guarantees as people like Max Crosby and Davante Adams. And here's the thing. We know that it's not that cozy being with Josh McDaniels, being a part of that team, because we've straight up had players retire to go play Pokemon. We had freaking Blake Martinez, a guy who knew Patrick Graham from Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator's time with the New York Giants. He knew him, worked with him before, joined the Raiders, and then sold a Pokemon card and decided to retire. And I don't believe this BS that, he made a couple million off this Pokemon card and that's why he decided to retire. No, that sounds like a BS excuse because the dude would have made about $900,000, $1 million if he would have finished out the season with the Raiders, but he chose to retire mid-season. He chose to retire instead of continuing to play the game with the Raiders. Think about it. He could have played just a few more weeks, finished out the season, made some extra money, but it must have been so bad there with Josh McDaniels and the Raiders that the guy decided to retire. Blake Martinez didn't even want to make the extra cash, said, hey, you could keep the check. That's pretty intense to me, man. But there are some positives here. You have an A A here with food and nutrition and A in the weight room. It's actually funny. The one category that they are tied for number one is strength coaches. And who's a part of that strength coaching staff? None other than Deuce Gruden. So the only staff that the players voted high and favorably, well, that staff is partially led by a guy whose last name ends in Gruden, not McDaniels. So we had strength coaches and there's training staff, and this is more about the coaching staff. Does the training staff add to their success? That's what this is about. And the Raiders were tied for 22nd. That's actually pretty crazy because, like the NFLPA points out, that may sound slightly below average, but that's because most teams rate their training staffs positively. So the fact that the Raiders are ranked 22nd means they're actually lower because they actually usually give a pretty favorable review. So the Raiders players did not believe that their training staff adds to their success. So at least the Raiders are ranked high in terms of their facility, in terms of their stadium, their nutrition. They're ranked high in these categories, ranked extremely low, straight up last in coaching staff, which is absolutely insane. And this will have huge consequences. Who's going to want to play with the Raiders when you have players who are playing there saying that it sucks to work with Josh McDaniels, saying that he does not add to their success, saying that he keeps them for longer hours, and saying that he doesn't listen to players and it doesn't lead to results. So this is going to be a huge problem. You got a veteran who's choosing between a few teams. Yeah, he might choose Vegas because you got low taxes, but then he's also going to be thinking, oh, you have Josh McDaniels, you have the unnecessary long practices. That's going to be a huge problem for me. And so the Raiders are going to end up in a situation where they can only get the players that not any other clubs want. So that means you're getting less talented individuals, and the talented individuals that you do get, you're going to have to pay more money for them because they're going to be competing to go to another team. And so here's Josh McDaniels' best play here, and this is what I think he is doing. I think he does want to go with cheaper, young talent and also rookies. He wants to build a team of a lot of guys who don't know any better. To me, it's similar like dating a girl who's never been with a guy before. Maybe it's her first serious relationship, her first time being intimate with someone. And so if you're all she knows, she's going to think that you're world class. Oh man, this guy's a stud. He's awesome. Oh, well, he's the only guy you've been with. So I think that's what Josh McDaniels wants to be. He wants to be the only guy, the only NFL coach. A lot of his players have experienced, a lot of these rookies who are on 4-year contracts, these young veterans who've never really been a starter. And so they're all going to think, oh, this harsh hours of practice, this is normal. And him not listening to players, that's totally fine. That's totally normal. And, he's great because he's all I really know. So I think that is that is really the play that Josh McDaniels has to do now. He either has to do that or you're going to have to end up overpaying veterans if this report, which seems true, is legit. And I think this report is more, I guess, insightful because it validates what we heard midseason. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the Vic Tafur reports, players being frustrated with the long practices not leading to results. Now this is the cherry on top that confirms that wasn't all smoke. This is a real sentiment that at least some players feel on the team. And like I said earlier, I don't think this is Devontae Adams and Max Crosby voting Josh McDaniels unfavorably. Who knows? It's anonymous. It's possible. But these guys are paid very well. I think it's probably a lot of players who are not paid well. But guess what? In the NFL, you have a salary cap. You're only allowed to afford certain players and pay them a lot of money. And the rest, you got to get it done with a lot of guys who are still trying to prove it and who are on these cheaper contracts. So Josh McDaniels and the Raiders better wise up or else they might not have the right roster to compete. Anyways, the combine is happening now. We're going to keep you up to date with everything happening with the Raiders that is important. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.